In the West, there are still a few good men left, men of God, like the circuit-riding preachers of old, proclaiming truth like the holy prophets of old, strong and bold. You're about to hear politically incorrect but biblically correct truth from circuit-riding preacher Peter Peters, whose home base is a radio ranch nestled in the Laramie River Valley near Laramie, Wyoming. The radio ranch is a working cattle and horse ranch where circuit-riding preacher Peter Peters broadcasts nightly worldwide on the Scriptures for America Worldwide Broadcasting Network, reaching the world through satellite, radio, television, shortwave, and the World Wide Web. Writing for the brand, he preaches for the man, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. His circuit not only includes a radio ranch outreach in Wyoming, but also the LaPorte Church of Christ, located at the base of the colorful Colorado Rocky Mountains in LaPorte, Colorado, where he has preached for over 30 years. The message is preached there by Dr. Peters on Sunday morning or streamed live on the internet and are archived at the ministry website, scripturesforamerica.org. Dr. Peters' politically incorrect but biblically correct sermons are available on CD and DVD. Many in America, Canada, and all over the world are on the free CD and DVD ministry. Our address will be given at the end of this broadcast. And now, here is Dr. and Pastor Peter John Peters with the Word of God.
I suppose thus far for 1992, the biggest news item has been the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. You heard a lot about it, didn't you? Its official title is the United Nations Conference on Environmental Development. It's pronounced UNCED. UNCED. And there's been a lot unsaid about the Earth Summit, and I've come to the conclusion that I've got to address this thing. Some things have got to be said that are being missed by most Christian church pulpits today. The men there at the Earth Summit came from 170-some nations. They gathered together to discuss what the Newsweek magazine called, quote, the future of the global ecosystem, the most important issue in the world today, end quote. Now, I didn't know that, but I guess it's the most important issue now, the eco-global system. They came together to address that subject. The assembly there in Rio de Janeiro is simply a sign of our times, an unchristian time, a humanistic time, where you have the humanistic global mindset coming together to solve the Earth's problems. Such men are men who decide what is right and wrong. A humanist is the one that determines good and evil. In this case, in Rio de Janeiro, they're there to decide what is good and what is bad for our planet and your life and your future and your children. Such men, I have found, consider themselves very intellectual. The humanist is quite intellectual. He's not hamstrung like the fundamentalist Christian who can't think for themselves. He's an individual that is of a higher learning. And you'll find that the men behind the scenes at the Earth Summit are such men that not only are they humanistic in their thinking, but they are elitists. They feel that they know what is best for you and for this planet. And I find that most environmentalists, by the way, though they're concerned for things besides just themselves, they're concerned for this planet, they have the humanist mindset. And, as I said, these people consider themselves very intellectual. However, upon analysis, I think it's apparent that they're not intellectual, they're stupid. Now, I'd like to have you turn in your Bibles, if you've got a Bible this morning, Romans chapter 1. And I want to read a passage of Scripture in verse 22. The New American Standard says, let's look at verse 21. For even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks. But they became futile in their speculations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. The Amplified Translation puts it this way: because they knew and recognized him as the God, they did not honor and glorify him as God, or give him thanks. But instead they became futile and godless in their thinking, with vain imaginings, foolish reasoning, and stupid speculations, and their senseless minds were darkened. I titled this message, Earth Summit Stupidity. Stupidity number 1. No one thought to bring a manual to Rio. Think about that. No one thought to bring an instruction manual to the Earth Summit. Now, a most basic, vital, foundational truth that pertains to the saving of this earth has been ignored by the humanists, these intellectuals, these elitists that have gathered there in Rio de Janeiro. What is the most basic foundational truth that has to be understood in regards to saving this earth? That the earth was created. Think about it. If you don't have that truth, you can't save the earth. I'll show you why. Not only that the earth was created, but that it was created by the Christian's God, the God of the Christian Bible. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now that fundamental, basic, foundational truth was not acknowledged and understood at Rio, the Earth Summit. God created the earth. What a creation it is. Think about it. How complex it is and how intricate, how magnificent it is. How there are checks and balances and the different systems tie in, and how the animal kingdom supports the plant kingdom, the plant kingdom supports the animal kingdom. Very complex. Someone might say that's wearing a sign saying Greenpeace, what difference does that make? What difference does it make? Well, here's the difference. With a little bit of intelligence, we understand that every designer, inventor, manufacturer of an intricate, valuable creation always presents with the product what? A manual, an owner's manual, an instruction manual. And God has done no less. How stupid can we be to think that he did less than that? He didn't just take Adam and place him there in the garden and say, tend to it, boy, the best you can, figure it out as you go. That garden was a very delicately balanced ecosystem, was it not? Did God just put him there and not give him any instructions at all? How could we possibly believe that a loving creator would do such a thing? To do it would be equivalent to taking a man up in an airplane for the first time in his life, sticking him in the left seat of the cockpit, saying, here, take the wheel. The man grabs the wheel, his knuckles squeeze tight and become white with fright. As you put on your parachute and say, I'm turning it all over to you, fly it the best you can, boy. And the guy looks at all these dials. He sees the altimeter, and he sees the oil gauge, gas gauge. He sees the artificial horizon. He looks up and he says, well, how do I do it? And just as you're jumping out, pulling the ripcord, say, do the best you can. To do that would be to sentence that man to death by airplane crash. Right? Now, did God take and put us on this thing called planet Earth that's flying through space and say, fly it the best you can? Every airplane manufacturer always presents with the airplane, I have a pilot here in the crowd, what does it present with the airplane, Russ? The owner's manual. In fact, the FAA has deemed it illegal to fly an airplane without a what in it? an owner's manual. And guess what? God has deemed it not illegal, but unlawful to fly this planet Earth without the instruction manual. Because when you do, you're going to crash. The instruction manual being, in this case, the operator's manual, the Bible. It gives the tolerances, the limitations, the do's, the don'ts, the correcting maneuvers, and so forth and so on in running this planet Earth. Stupidity number one at the Earth Summit was they forgot to bring the instruction manual. Now, had they even brought the instruction manual, they would not have consulted it, because humanists write their own rules, or instruction manuals, so to speak. These intellectuals of our day and their elitists that gathered down there, they make up their own rules and they consult a different God. Stupidity number two at Earth Summit. Man and the big government Baal he creates can solve the world's problems and save the world. That was a foundational premise on which they gathered there at the Earth Summit. Earth Summit stupidity number two. Believing that man can solve Earth's problems and save the world. Man and his government. How foolish of the man who would climb into a cockpit of a Boeing 707 or even a Piper Cub for the first time in his life and kick the instructor out and say, I don't need you, I think I can figure this thing out on my own, I'll get it worked out. Stupidity. Stupidity. Now, the reasoning that goes on in the environmentalist humanistic mind is something like this. Mother Earth was doing just fine until who comes along and destroys it? Man. He always comes along. He always comes along and destroys, messes up the environment that Mother Earth has given us. Now, the unspoken thing here, there's an adjective that normally goes along with the word man, but it's not spoken normally. But what is that adjective? What man are they talking about, really? White man. They don't normally say it, but that's who they mean, isn't it? I mean, the Indians were doing just great here on the North American continent until man comes? No, till white man. But we'll get to that maybe a little bit later. But on page 30 of this Newsweek, dated June 1st, 1992, I think that we have the reasoning. Under the heading, it says, the 7 deadly sins. Quote, Adam was supposed to be the first environmentalist, first the caretaker in paradise, even a vegetarian. His fall doomed us to repeat his sins, time and again despoiling the garden and casting ourselves into a more imperfect world. End quote. So, now we have it, Adamic man. Adamic man has always messed up, always causing us. Here was this caretaker in paradise, a vegetarian, mind you. Well, I don't have much doubt that maybe he was a vegetarian. But I'll tell you something, and this is just a side note, it's not in my notes. If God wanted us to be vegetarians, he certainly would have put it in the instruction manual, wouldn't he? And if you analyze the economy that God set up for Israel, they were heavy meat eaters. Now, I know that doesn't fit with this New Age health fad that's going on in the world today. Stay away from the red meat, eat all the sprouts you can. But the truth of the matter is, it's just not part of the instruction manual. But let's get back to the notes here. So, man is the one. Always messes up the world. Can't ever run this thing right. Now, I want to ask you something. Who is it, or who was it, that gathered in Rio to save the earth and to fly her right? Man. The same creature that they tell us always destroys it. And so we are to believe now Those men, however, are different than all other men. You see the elitist mindset? Here's another thing. Along with this stupidity is this one. A new Baal god, a big government, will save us. The humanist is a god unto himself. He decides right and wrong, and when you take the humanists collectively and bring them together to form a government, then the government becomes as God deciding right and wrong. We have that going on today. And we sit there, we don't think anything of it. Somebody, somewhere in this nebulous thing called government, decides you can't have 10 commandments listed on the wall of the schoolhouse. What do we do? Okay, that's wrong. Take them out. That's wrong. Why? Why is it wrong? Because Baal, God, says it's wrong. When the humanists gather together collectively as a government, then that government becomes a god known in Scripture as Baal, and that is what these people, after they erect it, fear. By the way, the Baals have a way of teaching you to fear. You know, the kinder, gentler nation that's going to come with the New World Order that Bush talked about. You want to know how kind and gentle it is? Ask the survivors of the hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children who were slaughtered in Iraq. The kinder, gentler. They teach you to fear this God. They fear the God. They bow down to it. That is, obey it. They worship it. They sacrifice to it, meaning pay up, pay more. And guess what? With this God called big government, they look to it for salvation. It's going, in this case, to save the earth. Save the earth summit. In this case, 178 governments, government Baals, if you will, come together to form a new God, a new Baal called what? New World Order. One world government. And the brilliant humanist intellectuals figure that this God will save the world, clean up the planet, and fly the thing right. Now, isn't that brilliant? When the governments came with their own environmental problems to begin with. Now, let's think about it. I don't claim to be an extremely intelligent individual, but I try to hold on to that uncommon common sense. And it tells me this, that if you've got 178 governments that have environmental problems back home that they couldn't solve, and they said we have to have an Earth summit to form a new world order to solve these problems, if they couldn't solve the problem as big government, why will an even bigger government called New World Order solve the problem? Does that seem reasonable? Am I missing something here? Stupidity number 2. If they had not succeeded, why believe that 178 nations coming together to form an even bigger Baal government called New World Order will save the earth? The truth of the matter is, big government does not solve problems, it creates problems. It has always been that way. And environmentally, big government does not improve the environment, it destroys the environment. Perfect illustration that someone sent to me. It came out of the Las Vegas Sun, dated Friday, May 15th, 1992. Headline here says, Communist Legacy. And see the picture of the Soviet Union and all the skull and crossbones here in the black squares? This is the headline. It says, Toxic land, dying people. The old order is gone, but its ghost remains. In the former Soviet Union, ecocide has left a deadly reminder. Long after communism is forgotten, its legacy will linger in the poisoned bodies and environment of the vast region it once ruled. Quote, no other great industrial civilization so systematically and so long poisoned its land, air, water, and people, end quote, writes the author of Ecocide in the USSR. a book detailing the environmental degradation of the Soviet Union. And then the article goes on and explains how big government, totalitarian government, atheistic, humanistic government destroyed the land, the air, the water, the lakes, the stream, poisoned the people. Now here's a perfect example of big totalitarian humanistic government destroying the environment. And let me tell you this, the New World Order will be bigger, more totalitarian, and just as humanistic and atheistic. And we're supposed to believe that this new God that they are erecting, called the New World Order, is going to save the world. Seem reasonable? How about stupidity number 3? Communism is dead, and the man with the black uniform with the badge saying UN on it has come to help you. That is stupidity number 3. Stupidity in not seeing the evil motives behind this thing called save the environment. Remember what the Bible teaches us, that evil always disguises itself as what? As good. Turn over to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, we read in verse 13 through 15 the following. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workers, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Therefore it is not surprising if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their deeds. Our adversary has always disguised himself as a sheep, when in reality he's a wolf. Now, if I was a thief, intent on coming to rob you and despoil you of your birthright, you think I'm going to say, hey, hi, I'm here to steal from you? No, I say, hey, hi, I'm here to help you. I'm here to save your world. The best thievery on earth goes in that manner. In the June 1st issue of Newsweek, I want to read the following, the headline here. There's 2 pictures here. I don't know if you can see it on the video camera or not, but the first picture is a big pile of automobile tires burning. You see it? And then right across from it, up in the right-hand corner, is a picture of a black woman, a skinny black woman, a little skinny black child, sitting in the street, hovered over a bull. And then in between is the writing, between these 2 pictures. It says, quote, while the global poor go to bed hungry, the excesses of the wealthy go up in smoke. Can the planet continue to support such a dichotomy? And should it? End of quote. Now, you have to do a little thinking to see the evil motives, but of course it would appear that the person writing this article and the people promoting this are concerned for who? The poor. When in reality it might very well be they're concerned about stealing from the rich. But they would have us to believe that it's the poor. And notice they say this question, can the planet continue to support such a dichotomy? And should it? 2 questions there. Can it continue to support such a dichotomy between the rich and the poor? And the second question, should it? Rest assured that those 2 questions have already been answered by the so-called intellectual, humanist, environmental elitists that gathered at the Earth Summit. They've already answered that question, and it's no on both accounts. No, the planet cannot continue to support such a dichotomy, and no, it should not support such a thing. They've already answered that question for you. So how do they intend to remedy this problem? Very simple. It's called take from the haves, give to the have-nots. It's been better known in the past as from each according to his ability to each according to his need. We used to call it communism, but you can't call it communism anymore because there is no more communism. So we're told. Well, then what do you call it? How about New World Order? New World Order, environmental style. Communism on a global scale. What is the motive of the New World Order? Well, what was the motive? I should put it this way. What was the hidden motive at the Earth Summit? In this issue of Newsweek, I noticed the headlines. It says, Earth at the Summit. Live from Rio, next week's global gathering will be part carnival, part propaganda fest, and a real test for the New World Order. And I thought to myself when I read that, now they're really telling you something there, probably more truth there than even the rest of the article. They're telling you the truth that the gathering at Rio, at the Earth Summit, really wasn't Save the Earth, it was simply a carnival. And it was a propaganda fest. And more importantly than that, the real motive, a test for the New World Order. And yet the environmentalists of our land, whose mentality is in the humanistic realm, would think that they are gathering together to save the earth. It was one big party held by such people as the Rothschilds and so forth as bringing in the New World Order. Talk about carnival. They had everything there from the Boy Scouts to the dance group Up With People to the PLO to Chinese or Japanese using a new thing, I can't even call it shooting light out of their hands, so forth and so on. I mean, there was really something. That was quite an event that took place down there. But the real motive, something entirely different. Another example I want to take from the June 22nd issue of Newsweek, where it has the article, "And Now the Road from Rio." I read the following, quote, "Was it a success? By some measures it was," said Rio Chairman Tommy Koh of Singapore. "We have really done the impossible, advancing a version of a new world order." End quote. The hidden motive is simply New World Order. To advance the New World Order requires the merging of the nations together. But how are you going to merge the nations together when there's such a great, what they call, dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots? It's almost like trying to put a jigsaw puzzle together where nothing really fits. How are you going to merge these countries together when you have such a divergence in wealth between the haves and the have-nots? Think real hard, Americans. You lower the standard of living of the higher standard of living countries, and you raise the standard of living of the lower standard of living countries. However, I think the truth of the matter is it'll go like this. You just lower the standard of living of the higher standard of living countries down to the level of the lower standard of living country, and what happens between the difference? The same thing that always happens with socialism. When the socialist bail government takes from the haves $1 to give to the have-nots get 10 cents. What happened to the other 90 cents? It's lost somewhere in between, isn't it? In this bureaucratic machinery. It goes into someone else's pocket. So, to bring in this one world government, you've got to lower the standard of living of the have countries. I like this article from Spotlight, June 22nd, by Mr. James P. Tucker, Jr. It says, quote, "You'll pay to save the earth. The world's shadow government's plan to establish a United Nations bureaucracy to police the environment and shuffle billions of American taxpayer dollars overseas were conscientiously pursued in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The establishment media has played down the cost to be extracted from the wallets of American taxpayers as a result of the just-ended Earth Summit." Further on in here, it says, "Time suggested granting broad powers to the United Nations to create an environmental police force for the planet. The UN police force," don't worry about them, they're kinder and gentler, you know, "and the means for helping poorer nations obtain substantial development and clean up the waterways and air that threatens all of us are to be financed by a UN tax of 0.7% of the gross national product of each of the industrialized countries by the year 2000, end quote. So it's very apparent what the hidden motive is. Not there to help you. They're there to take from you, take from the haves, and think 0.7% of the GNP of such nations as Germany, England, America. I mean, that's a many, many billions of dollars, is it not? A UN tax collected by a UN police force. Environmental issues are being used today to lower the standard of living right now. Again, it's the same old teaching that Christ taught us. The wolf comes in sheep's clothing. We think that they're coming to help us and to save our environment, when in reality they're coming to destroy what standard of living we have. Now, I was speaking to a young man the other day. He was explaining a place where men work. He says, you know, those men only get 5 days a week vacation a year, and they're always broke, and what they have is already mortgaged, so their paycheck goes to pay their debts, and they hardly have anything. He said, he says, they got to pay on their car. He says, how can they take anything more from them? And I said, remember, as far as the elitist, humanistic, environmentalist mindset is concerned, they're still too rich. They have a car, and this woman and her child doesn't have a car. And as far as those men are concerned, who are, by the way, very, very wealthy, owning the earth, as far as they're concerned, you don't need a car and shouldn't have one. After all, the car pollutes anyway, doesn't it? And so even when we have a description of a man in America that's still just barely able to make it, and he can't support a family just on his one paycheck, so he might not even be married, or if he is married, his wife has to work. But that man still, as far as these people are concerned, have plenty to give. There's still more blood to take out and suck from him. Does that make sense? And the environmental issue is the issue they're using to do it, to lower the standard of living. Examples. How about the spotted owl? Are they really that concerned about the environment and the spotted owl? Or are they more concerned about closing down at least 100,000 jobs in the timber industry and related industries in the Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Northern California? Think of it, 100,000 jobs. I don't know what the exact figures are. That's the one I had in my library, the notes. I'm sure there are those who have the more exact figures. A columnist by the name of Warren Brooks wrote in his column of May 4th, 1991, and showed that 588,000 jobs in the industry known as construction have been lost since May 4th, since, let's see, I might have written down the wrong dates here. I think it was in May of 90. have been lost because of environmental issues. But the point is, here was a man showing statistics over 500,000 jobs in just the construction industry lost because of environmental issues. How about the Clean Air Act? Who would be against the Clean Air Act? They want to save the air. Well, there's an interesting track I had someone sent to me, or someone did send to me, called The Phony Claims of the Environmental Lobby by Phoebe Courtney. And I want to share with you the statistics that's in here about the Clean Air Act. It says, quote, "The real purpose of the Clean Air Act is control, government control of businesses by the Environmental Protection Agency. A Senate estimate of jobs which will be lost because of the Clean Air Act indicates the following. Michigan, 220,000 jobs. Indiana, 200,000 jobs. Ohio, 326,000 jobs. Texas, 184,000. California, 330,000 jobs. That's 3 million jobs in America just on this one environmental issue that the Senate is estimating will be lost. Can we not see that the real motive behind the Earth Summit is the promotion of this thing called worldwide global communism? And it still is taking from the haves, and the environmental subjects that are being brought up to us are simply there to steal from us. Of course, I would say this, if you're one of the jobless and you hear this tape somewhere, don't feel bad. You can always rejoice that you have been counted worthy to sacrifice to the new Baal called the New World Order. That's supposed to save the world. It's for your own good. And if you believe that, stupidity number 3 fits you, does it not? How about stupidity number 4? Believing that the Baal God never lies to you. The true God does not lie. It is impossible for God to what? Lie. The Scripture says that. But that's the true God, the God of the Christian Bible. But the Baal God is quite proficient in lying. Lie after lie after lie has been brought to us. How about the lie of, well, so many of these lies, they tie in together, but how about the lie of overpopulation? That's always been one of the foundational things that the environmental issues have been pushed forward on, overpopulation. In fact, I brought to the pulpit a news article from Las Vegas Sun. Someone sent it to me. May 15th, 1992. Starvation threatening 30 million in America. Starvation threatening 30 million in Africa. Let me read part of it. Quote, "Drought most severe in Mozambique and Zimbabwe. The United Nations Population Fund considers the 1990s to be the crucial decade. If things go wrong now, they cannot be put right and will have catastrophic effects on the next generation, experts say. Despite all these warnings, African families seem to want many children. In countries like Zimbabwe, where contraception is freely available, the average woman gives birth to 6 children. In about 30 countries, the population is growing faster than the economy, meaning that people are constantly getting poorer. Africa, which still exported food at the time of decolonization, can no longer feed itself. Increasingly, it has become the disaster continent. Starvation threatens 30 million Africans, and food aid, formerly temporary, has long been a perpetual fixture. Rapid population growth means easy solutions to the problems of hunger, degradation, and poverty are becoming increasingly unlikely. On the contrary, a catastrophe seems almost inescapable. End of quote. Now let's analyze this lie. 30 million people starving to death in Africa. As a result of what, according to this article? Overpopulation. So says the experts from the UN. The problem is these people are doing what God said to do, which was what? Just 2 children. Remember that, Adam. 3 if you get carried away, but no more than that. No, be fruitful and multiply is what God said to do in the instruction manual. Isn't that right? But this God called the UN, New World Order, being administered out of the UN, this God says, don't be fruitful and multiply. That's the problem. You'll starve to death. It's kind of like God didn't give us the right instructions. He put us on this planet and told us how to fly it wrong. Like it can't handle all we can produce. Could it be that God knew that if we followed the instruction manual, that this earth could sustain every person that was produced, and overpopulation would never be a problem? But the veil God says it is a problem. That is a lie. Overpopulation is a lie. I shall show in the next message entitled Earth Summit Unmentionables that these people are not starving because of overpopulation. That is a lie. Now, the general idea of overpopulation is a lie. I'm going to read from a magazine called The New American. It's November 20th, 1989. It's a little dated. It says, quote, Professor of Economics at Humboldt State University in California reports in her important book, The War Against Population, Ignatius Press, 1988, quote within quote, resources far from being limited are abounding. No more than 1 to 3% of the Earth's ice-free land area is occupied by human beings. Less than 1/9 is used for agricultural purposes. 8 times and perhaps as much as 22 times the world's present population could support itself at the present standard of living using technology, and this leaves half the Earth's surface open to wildlife and conservation areas, in the quote within quote. Before Columbus, the Americans were overpopulated, and some peoples regularly resorted to cannibalism to survive. North America was overpopulated when the Indian population was at most 300,000. As the horse and the gun became available and productive, agricultural techniques developed, and the problem of overpopulation receded as population grew, end of quote. We never hear that, though, do we? We are very foolish to believe the lies that are being put out regarding population. How about global warming? How about global warming? In Phoebe Courtney's track here, it's an interesting subtitle. It says Global Warming Hoax. The Sunday Telegraph in London, England, on April 21st, 1968, published a frightening survey headlined Strange Case of Climate Shift, which detailed dire forecasts of steadily increasing cold. The report then went on to say, quote within quote, there are signs that the glaciers may be advancing again. Dr. James Lodge of the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado, suggested that this may be the first sign of another ice age on the way, in the quote within the quote. Less than 10 years later, in 1977, the U.S. National Academy of Sciences suggested that a new ice age is upon us. But now we're told it's not an ice age that we've got to worry about, it's global warming. going on in the tract, quote, in November 1990, the public broadcast system, PBS, which is subsidized by taxpayers' dollars, aired a TV scare program on global warming called After the Warming. It was a fictional look at what awful effects might occur by the year 2050. But when a highly acclaimed British-produced program called The Greenhouse Conspiracy was offered, giving evidence that there is no urgent global warming danger, PBS refused to show it to American viewers. End of quote. There are more lies, such as white man always comes and destroys the environment. I think I'll cover that in the next message entitled Earth Summit Unmentionables. Also, in that coming message, we're going to cover, is it terrible to have this terrible, what they call, dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots? Or could it be good? And could it be glorifying to God? Oh, I know that sounds strange, but just think about it a second. How about this? What one thing lowers the standard of living and destroys the economy of a nation? One thing, one word. Overpopulation is not what's causing starvation in Ethiopia. What is it? Plus kingdom economics that are never mentioned at such places as Rio de Janeiro and the Earth Summit. That'll be in the next message entitled Earth Summit Unmentionables. We are foolish to think that good will come out of that Earth Summit. It's just more of reaching down into your wallet, more of what God said would happen to us when we disobey His law, being oppressed and robbed continually. We'll close with that. That's it. Got the first message out of the way. What do you think? Got 5 minutes. We're not on the air now, are we?
The preceding message by circuit riding preacher Peter Peters from the LaPorte Church of Christ, located at the base of the beautiful Colorado Rocky Mountains in LaPorte, Colorado, has been aired on the Scripture for America Worldwide Broadcasting Network and is available on CD or DVD and is archived at the website scripturesforamerica.org. Remember, circuit rider, preacher, and teacher Peter Peters broadcasts live nightly from his Wyoming radio ranch, nestled in the Laramie, Wyoming River Valley. It's a working horse and cattle ranch where circuit riding preacher Dr. Peters reaches the lost sheep of the house of Israel worldwide on satellite, internet, and shortwave radio. Dial settings 5755 and 9480. Check out the 24-hour, 7 days a week web broadcasting website sfawbn.com. Scriptures for America Worldwide Broadcasting Network is made possible by the prayers and tithes of the faithful. If you want to write to circuit riding preacher Peter Peters, the address is Scriptures for America, P.O. Box 766, LaPorte, Colorado 80535. Or you can visit us on the web at www.scripturesforamerica.org. The preacher will be riding back this way next week and hopes you will too.